Good morning, and thank you for joining us today to discover how you can access $75,000 in matching funds to offset foreign competition. My name is Delaney McKinley, and I am Vice President of Membership, Marketing, and Events for the Michigan Manufacturers Association. Some of you who have joined us today are members, and some of you may not be. So I would encourage you to check out mimfg.org. MMA is the only statewide organization focused solely on securing a prosperous future for Michigan manufacturers through effective advocacy, meaningful education, and strategic business services. I'm very pleased to be participating in this discussion today with the Great Lakes Trade Adjustment Assistance Center. The Great Lakes TAAF is part of the Economic Growth Institute at the University of Michigan. It manages the Trade Adjustment Assistance for Firms program for companies located in Indiana, Michigan, and Ohio. And they've got 35 years of experience helping small manufacturers that have been hurt by imports to improve their competitiveness. Here today to share more information about how you can access this important federal program are two Great Lakes TAAF staff members who each have extensive experience in business operations and management. Scott Phillips is Senior Project Manager. He is a veteran of product innovation, business development, marketing strategy, and entrepreneurship, with experience across many industries, and has held leadership positions with Whirlpool Corporation, Fortune Brands, and Burger King Corporation. Scott has also started 4 companies on his own, including The Searchlight and Connected Factory Global. We'll be hearing first today from Jenny Hatchett. She's a project manager at the Great Lakes TAAF, and she worked in finance, environmental consulting, and has co-founded a global reputation management company. She's passionate about assisting companies with all aspects of growth, from company outreach to infrastructure. So I'll just remind you, as a matter of housekeeping today, you can post your questions for Scott and Jenny through the Q&A feature, and I'll be facilitating those questions a little further into today's discussion. So without further ado, I'm excited to hear more about how our manufacturing members can access project assistance to tackle crucial initiatives. So thanks very much. Welcome, Jenny.
Hi, thank you so much, Delaney. I appreciate that wonderful introduction for myself and for Scott, who is on the line. I'd also like to thank Dane, who is the technical support in the back end for all of his assistance, and definitely thank the Michigan Manufacturers Association. We've been members of the association for over 20 years, and really want to thank you for having this space for us to talk about our program. It's a pretty powerful program and not very well known, so I'd like just thank you, and also thanks to all the attendees for joining us on this Michigan morning. I'm really excited to get the information out about our program and how we can assist you. So without any further ado, we're going to go into that we are part of the Economic Growth Institute that has several programs. So next slide, Dane. There we go. So we're part of the Great Lakes Trade Adjustment Assistance Center is part of the Economic Growth Institute that has several programs running. Some work with existing small companies, some work with startups, others are focused on community and nonprofits. We do research, we also do research for communities, economic development organizations, and other nonprofits. Next slide. The Great Lakes TAAF, our footprint is Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana. We were established in 1982, and again, we are housed within the Economic Growth Institute at the University of Michigan. We're a small professional staff, meaning we are non-academic, so we are not going to be splitting our time between teaching and companies. We really focus on the companies that are within our program. Great. What does a company look like within the Great Lakes TAAF? Well, there's a wide range. Our average is about $10 million in revenue and 60 to 80 employees, but we really need to speak to the range here. Our current biggest client is 68 million, while our smallest is 600,000. So we work with a wide range of companies and capabilities and how to support them. When you're in with a program, the size doesn't matter. And on top of that, we have such a diversity of industries that are represented. Of the last 100 clients, 58 of them were from different industries, including basic manufacturing industries like precision machining, stamping, and casting. But there's also many others that are represented. The program is also open to non-manufacturers. but we seldom work with them. Only 2 of the last 100 clients that were in our program were service providers. The Great Lakes Trade Adjustment Assistance Center, next slide, Dane, gets results, which is something that's important to talk about. We have assisted over 105 companies over the past 5 years. These firms have currently employing more than 10,000 workers and generate over $2 billion in annual sales. A really important point to note here is we have 100% 5-year survival rate. Despite COVID, none of our firms that we have assisted since January 1st, 2015 have gone out of business. Since starting the TAAF program, firms have increased sales by the average of 46% and expanded their workforce by an average of 23%. And just to speak to our established clients and our recent grads, 68% of them stated that they were profitable in 2019 when they were just at 44% before starting the project. Fantastic. The Great Lakes Trade Adjustment Assistance Center, well, we are one of 11 centers across the country that manages these federal matching funds program. And it's the only program specifically written to support import impacted manufacturers within the United States. We are funded through the Economic Development Administration by the Department of Commerce. Some of the benefits of the TAAF program, or the TAAF program for manufacturers, well, there's no fee to apply to this program. There is minimal fees once a company has been accepted and certified into the program. It's on the order of $2,000. When a company qualifies, they become eligible for $75,000 in matching funds, dollar for dollar, to do almost any kind of project that can help your company become more competitive. So basically, what we're talking about is we're looking at $150,000 worth of projects to support your company to become more competitive. Well, there's other benefits as well to the program. Throughout the program, you have a project manager that will do a site visit with you, come into your company, walk your floor, understand what's happening there, and it's a confidential look. It's a confidential outside look, outside eyes to help your business create a customized action plan, which is also called an adjustment plan. We see a lot of companies each week, and then once the program begins and the projects start, the clients can choose whichever service provider they would like to use for their training or projects that they would like to commence with. If you don't happen to have a solution provider that you would like to use, we have an extensive list of firms that we have used over the past 40 years that can really do just about any project in Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. Now I am going to turn this over to my colleague, Scott Phillips. I just want to remind everybody, definitely ask any questions. There will be a Q&A at the end. And we would love to answer any, and Scott Delaney will be facilitating those questions with Scott Phillips. So thank you for letting me share your morning with you.
Great. Thanks, Janie. Can you hear me okay, everyone? Yeah, good. Like Janie, I want to thank Delaney and Dane and Michigan Manufacturers Associations. We've been members a long time, but have never had an opportunity like this to talk about the program and see if we can benefit other members of the association. With COVID and other things going on right now, we have the potential to qualify more companies than we usually would have. So this is really good timing for us, and we're well funded, and we have a solid staff with capacity, and so we're ready to help people. So the first slide I want to talk about is the process. Like most government programs, Janie and I wish the process were a lot faster. We wish we could just back up to your business and open our Brinks truck and let you take some cash out and get going, but it doesn't work that way. But we work hand in hand with the EDA in Washington, and we work with them on 3 phases for a company who's interested. The first phase is to qualify. I'll talk about that in a minute. That can take two to 3 months to gather the documents necessary, prepare the petition, and go through a legal review in Washington. The next step is the plan, which Janie was just talking about. So once a company is certified after the first phase, then one of our project managers visits the business and starts an assessment process. The main goal there is to look at strengths and weaknesses and work with the leadership team of the business to develop a plan of how to spend that $150,000 in the best way possible. And like Janie said, this for a small business or family-run business, this can often be one of the few third-party consulting assessments that maybe you've ever had on your business. So our project managers are seasoned industry people, and it's always nice to have another set of eyes look at your business. That plan, after that's approved, sorry, go back one, Dean. That plan, after it's approved, also goes into the EDA, and it has to be reviewed. It usually moves quicker, but it can also take a couple months. And then once that spending plan is approved, that's called an adjustment plan, then you enter the 5-year window to use that $75,000 in matching funds to do one or more projects. Okay, Dane? So to qualify, there's 3 criteria. The first is that a company's recent sales trend has to be in a decline of 5% or more. And the period of time we look at to determine or find that 5% is quite flexible. It can be just the most recent 12 months compared to the prior 12 months, or it could be what's called a long look back, which means we don't have a decline against the prior year, but we do when we look back 2, 3, or 4 years. Or the other option is called an interim period of time, and that's the one that we're looking at a lot right now, where the decline is in a period as short as the most recent 6 months. So what I mean by that is a lot of companies who've had a good business trend, but were down or shut down because of COVID in the spring for a month or two for furlough, that is often just enough to tip the balance and perhaps qualify them for the program. So that's why I say this is a good time to be looking at the program. The second criteria is average monthly employment. That also must be trending down by 5% over the same period of time, whatever that period of time is. So both sales and employment. And then the third criteria is evidence of import impact. So the EDA requires in the petition process that we confirm that at least part of the reason for the sales and employment decline is related to import impact from foreign competitors. And what we're required to do as part of the process is work with our client to identify 4 of their customers whose business is down, speak to at least 2 of them by phone, and have at least 1 or more confirm that at least a small part of the decline in purchasing is related to a shift in purchases to a foreign competitor. It doesn't mean that they've moved all their business away, but they have to confirm that they've had to move some business away from the client for cost reasons or other reasons. And these are usually short conversations. They usually last only a couple minutes, and we ask just a few questions, and then we record the information in the petition. So those are the 3 criteria to qualify for the program. Next slide, Dave. I mentioned the recovery plan. This is the next step where our people travel on site and meet with the manufacturing firm. We send a survey in advance to get them thinking of some questions. Usually on that day, we meet with key personnel, and then we'll write a comprehensive analysis of the firm, the market they're in, the industry they're in. We'll create a recovery plan with projects and ideas, and identify the timeline. So when should those projects happen, in case some of them are related to each other. So it generally takes, like I say, maybe weeks or maybe a month to get together and create this plan and meet with the company. And then it also has to go into the EDA for their review and approval. So that's the second phase. Dane, the next slide. And then the fun part. You know, up until this point, you would have only just gone through the pains of providing information and waiting for approval and review. But by the time we get to phase 3, after your spending plan is approved, now you have this 5-year window to implement projects and take advantage of the matching funds. And our project manager will work with the clients to identify the projects they want to kick off. We'll help them create the scope of work and deliverables to be completed. And also, like Janie said, if they don't have a service provider, we have a large database of people we've worked with in the past and that we can recommend. They're also free to select their own service provider. We like to get that first project kicked off as soon as possible so we don't, kind of create any inertia or delay in using the funds. We handle all the project management functions. We'll write RFPs to help analyze different providers if you like. And then ultimately we write a three-way contract between the manufacturer, the University of Michigan, and whoever that third party is, whether they're a digital marketing firm or a lean consultant or a certification firm. The funds are approved, even regardless of the company's performance after they're certified. So these funds are never taken away. And you can cease implementation at any time. There's no penalty if for whatever reason you're not able to take advantage of the program even after you've qualified. Next slide, please. One of the common questions we get from people on a webinar like this is to understand all the ways the money can be used. So, after 40 years, we've seen companies be very creative in where they need help to be more competitive. Sometimes it's helping grow the top line through marketing and sales efforts with new website development, new market research, maybe hiring a temporary business development person to help you diversify into a new market. Industrial systems engineering, so ISO certifications, lean manufacturing, training of almost any kind, whether it's leadership or on the floor. And what I would say here is it's anything that a third party can come in and deliver to your business, we can pay for half of. So really another way to think about it is we're a half off coupon book for you for 5 years to do things that maybe you've already thought about doing or wanted to do or even had budget to do. People use it for cost accounting, customizing software, management development. So it's almost easier to talk about what you can't use the money for. And there's only 3 things you can't use the money for. You cannot use it for capital equipment purchase. You also can't use it for just day-to-day operating expenses. So you can't use these funds to pay your electric bill, for example, or your wages. And you also can't use it to help fund a project already underway prior to being approved for it. So we always remind people that if you have something urgent, don't wait for this 5 or 6 months to be approved because there's just too many unknowns. But we cannot fund a project that's already started before approval retrospectively. So it has to start with a new 3-way contract. Next slide, please. So this is just a snapshot in time. Like Janie said, we cover Michigan, Indiana, and Ohio. Right now we have 21 current clients in Michigan who are active in the program and spending on projects. Together they represent $253 million of total revenue, almost 1,200 employees, and 1.1 in projects facilitated that we've spent on. The types of projects they're doing are a lot of employee training, sales development, productivity improvement and quality, management team development, organizational development, ERP, MES, CRM, system implementation, new product development, marketing projects, website, digital videos, and then finance and strategic planning. And this is just a short list. So on our website is a longer list of all the different ways you can use the funds. Next slide, please. Here's just a small snapshot of some people who are active in the program in Michigan that you may or may not have heard of or be familiar with. Spot Imaging is a company out of Sterling Heights, Michigan. They're an imaging company in the life science market, and they were facing very stiff import competition from some very big firms like Zeiss and Canon and so forth. So they turned to Geotac for a diversification plan, a strategic plan to go into some unique markets. And you can read more about their story again on our website in the success stories. Aviotech up in Twin Lake, northern side of the west side of the state. military supplier. They used it to overhaul their company's web presence and also to acquire a critical certification, accreditation they needed to be eligible for new business. Superior Fab up in the UP, up in Kinchlow, supplier of heavy metal parts for many markets. They are an MMA member, and they did multiple projects in market research. And again, they were trying to diversify their revenues and kind of create a sales playbook for selling their products. And then Brighton NC Machine, don't have a description there, but Brighton's been in the program several years over in Brighton, Michigan. They've used it for quality certification, some marketing and sales and website issues. So they've really taken advantage of the program through a broad set of programs with many different suppliers. So what I would tell either a company that's considering this program or even a referral partner or anybody at MMA that's trying to help us find people is to think of these things. If a company is in flat or declining sales, flat or declining employment, or they're in the type of business where they bid potentially against foreign competitors and they've lost a recent bid, or there's some sort of indication of increased import competition that they're hearing from their buyers or their companies. So these are all kind of hints and clues. And what we would say is that if you are a company is at all remotely qualified or maybe qualified, it's worth a 5-minute call to Janie or I. We can ask a few more questions, especially to the president or the CFO or somebody in the business. And what we want to make sure is that we don't suggest you go through the program if it's not a good likelihood that you're going to qualify. We don't want to ask for documents and put you through the timeline and effort unless we are confident there's a pretty good chance that the company can qualify. Next slide. Great. So that's our story, and Janie and I are kind of the face to the market. We work with associations like MMA and with companies. We help to explain the program and help you get qualified and get your petition certified. There's our contact information on the screen. So if you don't have a chance to ask a question now during the webinar, don't hesitate to contact Janie or I by phone or email, and our information is also on our website. And so with that, I think we'll see if we have some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much, Scott. And thanks, Janie, too. Great information on a really great program that I think could help a lot of our members right now. Based on what you were saying, you know, there's been a lot of conditions that happened under COVID that I think may have brought a lot of our members into the pool now who might be eligible for this program right now. And it's exciting to hear when you said that you're well funded. That's really exciting to hear. And I like how you call it a half-off coupon book. That's a good way to think about it. Because there's a lot of projects out there that I know a lot of manufacturers are trying to get at. So we do have a question from the audience. For those of you out there who've not submitted your question, I encourage you to do so on the Q&A. If you look at your screen, there's two little kind of chat bubbles. And if you click on that, that'll bring out the live event Q&A, and you can enter your questions there. So first question that we have is, can we do more than one project at a time?
Janie, you want to take that, or you want me to take that?
Go ahead.
Okay. The answer is yes. I would say, Delaney, what we see a lot of is a rather big company that does big projects, like let's say an ERP implementation or something like that. It's not unusual for a bigger company to use up their matching funds in just one or two big projects. Okay. But with smaller firms, it's also not unusual for them to take 3 years or 4 years and do 3 to 10 projects. So the answer is definitely yes. We have no preference, our project managers, for how many projects you do. Whether it's 1 or 8, we do all the contracts and the RFPs for you and whatever help you need.
Great. Now, when folks have got multiple projects like that, does your team help them decide what order to do them and when?
In the adjustment plan, when it's written, the project manager will suggest the order in which to do the project. So an example might be is that, maybe there is a leadership development that's really critical because maybe there's a dysfunctional leadership team and not much is going to happen until we resolve that. So our team has experience of knowing the order which to suggest different types of projects.
Great. Great. That sounds like some really valuable experience. Now, let's talk again about what some refer to as, red tape, the application process. How much time and effort is this really going to take?
I'll answer that. So it depends. We normally warn people or make sure they're aware of that it could be as much as 40 hours of company time and 40 to 60, and maybe it could be 10 or 20 of the point person's time, if that's the owner or the CFO or somebody like that. And again, unfortunately, all that effort is usually in the front end before you get access to the funds. But yes, it can be a lot of hours. And then there's the elapsed time associated with the 3 phase of getting the approvals. But I would say the answer to the question is generally 40 to 60 hours.
Okay. And what you get in exchange for that, it sounds like there's a whole lot of help on the back end. Once you get through that application process, spend that time, put that investment there. In addition to the funds that we're talking about, all of the assistance from your project management and the experience that they've seen with other manufacturers across the state, that's a value on its own.
Yes. Yep, I agree with that.
Great. Can you go over again? You mentioned the lag time while we're seeking approvals. On average, how long does that take?
So we recently had a period of time, and again, we're very dependent on the EDA's organization and not the regional EDAs. We're dependent on the Washington office, Washington DC office. We recently went through a period in 2020 that won't surprise you, that because of COVID and staffing issues, we had longer processing times than we've normally seen. We think we've overcome that now, and we should be back to what we would say to people is about a 5-month window. And so from the date we talk to somebody on the phone, and of course that could be 6 months, it could be sooner, but we would always tell people about 5 months to get through the 2 processes and be ready to spend.
So really people should be getting a hold of you right away so they can start this process, get the application in, understand if they're eligible, and get this process moving, because there is money at the end of that trail. You guys are well funded, you said, so.
Yeah. And that's a good way to say it, Delaney, is like we say, sometimes we can't help an urgent need you have that's got to get done in the next 3 to 6 months, and we would never suggest you wait. But there's no reason to not start the process if you can qualify, because there's always projects to do, whether it's 9 months from now or a year from now. So get it in place and be able to use it is what I recommend.
Absolutely. And when you went, I'd like to have you go through again the kind of some examples of projects that other folks have used, because one that definitely perked my ears, you mentioned sales and marketing. In the era of COVID right now, I know a lot of our manufacturers, their sales teams are having a hard time. There's no more knocking on doors for your customers, so they're going to have to rethink that. So I know that that's an area where they're hurting, but you listed a long list of some examples of projects. Can you go through that again so our listeners and our participants can hear that again?
Yeah, sure, happy to. And I would say it is probably the biggest overall bucket of where people ask for help. And so I would say across the span of sales and marketing, the types of projects can range from website redevelopment, new website development, SEO, marketing, where you're on a pay-per-click basis. So we have a lot of digital agencies because that is something that manufacturers are looking at more and more. You could bring in a business development expert. So let's say you're in automotive or appliances or some industry, but you'd like to diversify into medical or some other industry. We could put you in touch with a business development person that knows that other industry, and you could bring them in on a contract basis to try to open some doors and get a foothold in a new industry. We have many companies that do outbound calling for you on your behalf. So you can work with them to get your pitch down, and then just pay them on a call basis or on a quote basis if they land a quote for you. And then we have everywhere in between. So everything from sales professionals who can help you with new markets to websites and marketing, companies that just do outbound calling, and probably some others I'm missing.
Sure, and you also mentioned, employee training, productivity issues, leadership issues, CRM, ERP. It's a wide range of things that could work under this program.
Yep, and I would say succession planning is another popular one that you could throw into the training bucket. But we deal with a lot of small family companies, family-owned companies that are somewhere between generation 1 and 2 or 2 and 3. And so we have many firms that can offer succession planning for them.
Great. We're seeing a great need for that too, just as as folks are aging and generationally, that's where a lot of companies are going. So we've got another question from the audience. So now we've talked a lot about being impacted by imports, but what about when your customers move their jobs or their plants to another country like Mexico? Is that something, and a situation in which the TAAF program might be able to help them?
So generally speaking, that is what's considered an indirect impact by the EDA, and that would not qualify per se. So, a lot of times we have companies whose customers, like you say, have moved offshore, but in our program, literally speaking, that company has to have reshifted some purchasing to another company. So it doesn't matter whether they themselves move to Mexico or Canada, they have to have replaced your business with a supplier in Canada or Mexico or India or China. So in other words, when we call somebody, we have to talk to the first invoice customer of our clients, and hear that they've moved purchasing.
Sounds like that might be an impact. So this company that just asked that question might want to at least explore this if they've had that situation. It's probably likely that they're moving some of their contracts with them as well.
Sometimes big OEMs in the automotive and aerospace industry will move business in-house to their own injection molders or metal fabs in another country. So that's another situation to look for. That can qualify.
But it's worth a call. It's worth a call to you or to Janny just to find out. You mentioned, that you have to talk to folks to try and improve import competition. Can we go over that again, the process that you use to make sure that they qualify in proving that there is import competition?
Yep, that's a good, and that is sometimes a worrisome issue for our clients going through the program. They're worried about us contacting their customers, and I understand that, and we've done it for 40 years. And the way we handle that is we always provide the client with a very templated email that they can send to the companies who will be calling. So in advance, they know who we are, why we're calling, and the questions we're going to ask. So we try to remove any concern or anxiety by a buyer or purchaser about why we're calling. A lot of our clients will call the buyers ahead of our call. And also when we make those calls to the purchasing agents and so forth, we ask them just 2 or 3 questions about, have they moved any business and to where? We don't need to know what companies they've shifted the business for. We do need to know if it's China or Mexico or what country it is. But probably the most important thing is we make sure that the buyers and our clients' customers know that any information they share with us over the phone or an email is confidential by federal statute. A GM or a Ford or a lot of big companies are not comfortable going on the record saying that they're moving business offshore. So we make sure they know that that information from them is not available to any other government agencies or made public in any way. It's only used to qualify our client for their petition.
Great, and it seems like that is a concern, because I just got, as you were speaking, one of our participants asked a question, do you keep our data confidential? So that's absolutely a concern. And you just said that you keep it confidential from all other federal agencies as well.
Right, and so the other thing that happens, more to the question asked, is we also sign an NDA at the very beginning of the process before any information. It's not required, but we recommend to all our clients to sign a standard NDA with the University of Michigan so that we can avoid the information being FOIA'd in any way by the federal government. So by doing that, we keep them out of the Freedom of Information Act. And so, yes, most clients feel a lot better doing that before they provide us any P&Ls or employment statements.
It's very clear to me that, with the 35 years experience that you all have at the Great Lakes TAAF, you understand the concerns and the thoughts of our members and of the manufacturers across the state. So it sounds like you're kind of ahead of the game in knowing that they want to protect their information, understanding some of the needs that they might have. So I think it'll be a good conversation when people call you up.
Yeah, well, like I say, if anybody thinks it's worth a phone call, I mean, 5 minutes with Janny and I, we can help them understand if it's worth the effort. And we would sure like to get more people in Michigan into the program, and sure like to get more MMA members into the program.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have time for those of you who are still participating. We have time for a couple more questions. Feel free to post them in the live event Q&A. I have one of my own questions here. You know, a number of our members are multi-state employers. They have facilities here in Michigan and in other states across the U.S. Can they start with the Great Lakes TAAF, or how should they proceed when they've got multiple facilities across the nation?
Yep, that's a great question. We're definitely a national program, and like Janie said, we're one of 11 centers. The program works exactly the same anywhere in the United States. And the answer to your question is, if it's a multi-state location company, whatever state that the facility is in with a legal identity, a business registered identity is determines which tax center we'll work with. So, for example, we're often in that situation where we're working with maybe a private equity firm or even a family fund that has locations across many states. If the facility we're going to work with has a business registration in Indiana, Ohio, or Michigan, we'll be the one working with them. But if they have a facility only in Georgia or South Carolina, we'll put them in touch with our counterparts at that TAAF office. And if they should qualify for both companies, the two TAAF offices will coordinate.
Great.
Yep.
Sounds like you guys pick up a lot of the weight there for our members. You know that they need to be out there doing what they do best. So it's helpful that you're doing a lot of the project management and a lot of the legwork there.
Yeah. Well, they got enough on their plate, and they're trying to make a buck. So we try to do as much as we can.
Great. Well, I think we've answered all of the questions. Janie, Scott, do you have any comments that you want to make before we wrap up today?
I would just like to thank you again, Delaney, for putting all this together, and Dane for all the technical support. And like I say, our biggest challenge is just getting the word out, and a webinar like this is very helpful. So hopefully we'll get some follow-up calls and get some people into the program.
And I'm just resounding that over here as well. Thank you so much, Delaney. Just thank you, Dane, and thank you, MMA.
Awesome. Well, thanks to you both. We really appreciate this information. You know, a very informative presentation on what could be a really valuable program for many of our members. I'd like to thank those of you who have participated today. I want to remind you, you can check out a lot more information at the Great Lakes TAAF website, and that is gltaac.org. Or you can contact Scott or Janie directly. That information was posted up on your screen. And I would urge you to just make that call to find out if you can improve your global competitiveness with the Trade Adjustment Assistance for Firms program. MMA also has a vast array of resources available to you. It's on our website. We've got other webinars. This webinar will be posted on demand after today. We've got a number of other things you can check out. Lots of things changing in the state of Michigan as well with regard to the governor's orders, new state orders, new legislative actions. All of that you can access at mimfg.org, or you can contact me directly at McKinley, McKinley at mimfg.org. Thank you very much, and I hope you all enjoy your day.
Thank you.
Thanks.